Well, hello, my friends. It's so good to see y'all. So I've got with me Brittany Peavy and Christy Drew, and all of our friends at Southside know who these two beautiful ladies are. And I don't know if you're feeling out there kind of what we're feeling, but we're being thrust into coronacation mode, and coronation's bringing us lots of new deals and new ways of doing things. And one of these things that we're having to do is have our kids at home with us all day long, and that is glorious for some of us. Some of us, it has presented a whole set of questions and challenges, and I've been presented with some questions from some of my friends that would like advice just on how to get through these days of schooling at home, working at home with our children. And we're definitely not professionals, but you are looking at ex homeschool mom. And so when this happened, I just kind of took that homeschool hat out of the closet and dusted it off and put it on, and we went to work. And then I've also got Brittany Peavy with me, who works with us at Southside, but she was in the teaching profession for many, many years in younger grades. And then I have Christy Drew with me. Well, back up. Brittany's got 3 boys at home, all under the age of 10. And then Christy is in the teaching profession now and has been for many, many years, and is at high school, a business teacher. And she has 3 kids at home, ranging from what, Christy?
7, almost 8 to 14.
So, yeah. So we got it going on, like you got it going on at home, and so we want to see if we can offer any help to y'all today. So the first question that we're going to ask is a mom asked, how do I balance a toddler and kindergarten homeschool and work? So, Brittany, would you like to give our friends some advice on this?
I would love to. And I would just first say, like, I'm figuring it out too. Just last week, Candy can attest to this. I called her and I was like, okay, so I've been a teacher for 13 years, but I've never had to teach while my toddler was right there with me, right? So I said, help me how you did this when you were homeschooling and had a little one plus older ones. And, you know, some of the things that we talked through, I think, just some of the things that have been a lifesaver for me were, number one, I know we ladies are multitaskers, and I know we can do that. However, one thing that I learned last week was that it was very difficult for me to try to do too many things at once. So I had to kind of put some things aside. I couldn't juggle trying to answer church emails and try to help my older boys with their school and try to attend to my toddler's needs. So I think that that is important and a lifesaver. Is this type of multitasking right now in this environment might be more difficult for us to do. You know, I mean, I can like make phone calls and fold clothes, but this type of multitasking is different. So I would first probably say prioritize things. And something that's really helped me is to have some structure for my toddler. I told Candy, I've learned how spoiled our last little one is, and that he's been used to having a lot of attention all the time. But I think it's okay during this time to let them have some, you know, either playpen time or some room time, some time to themselves where they can occupy themselves safely, of course, but that'll give you a little bit of time to give your full attention to you know, your other children that need help with their schoolwork. And I think with that, I tried to balance it because I have 2 that are doing digital learning plus the toddler. So if I can get him doing something, playing with a puzzle or something by himself, then I try to ask one of the boys, okay, which one of you has something you need my help with, and which one of you can work on something independently. So Abe may be doing his independent reading, and I tell him to wait on his math so that I can help Eli with, you know, the language arts stuff that he might need more support with. So I think, you know, and I'll tell you, a blessing that's been wrapped up in this is I'm learning so much more about my kids' strengths and the things that they need more support with. And I'm trying to not waste this time and use that time to get to know them and their, you know, their academic selves that I don't always get to see because they do that at school while they're not with me. So I would say try not to beat yourself up for not being able to multitask. I think it's harder to multitask in this environment. And then try to focus on helping your children structure where they need you one at a time. And you really can do it if you plan it out. I'm kind of learning that as I go.
That's what I was going to say, is just try to maybe prioritize what you, like you said, what can we do at this time? What can we do at this time? What's the most important thing to get done right now? I have a friend who has a toddler and 2 elementary school age kids. And that's kind of what she's done. She's reached out. She's a teacher. She's reached out to her administration and said, look, my 3-year-old needs some outside time. So from this time to this time, I may take my laptop outside and sit, or, I may be out there working, letting her run around and play. Thank the Lord for the pretty weather that we've had. So they've been able to get outside some. So I think, like Brittany said, prioritize, and that schedule, just like they thrive off of that, especially the little ones. They need that schedule. So trying to keep that as much as you can, but being flexible at the same time. So.
And I would add one more thing, just from a teaching standpoint, and I know Christy can attest to this, they usually say your children's attention span is about equivalent to their age in terms of minutes. So if you've got a 9-year-old, make the most of 9 minutes together, and then take a break or let them do something independent of you. And so I try to think about that with my toddler. He needs small things he can do in small amounts of time. But I know from teaching in a classroom of 30 kids, teachers do this too. They have one group working on something independently so that they can give full attention to another group. We can't give all of our attention to all 30 either. So I think this is just us kind of taking on that role. But remember those small time, don't expect too much of our little people, because they do have smaller attention spans than we do.
That's great. And I tell you, as a homeschool mom, looking back on that time that we had, the schedule to me is the most important foundation that you can have during this time. And I know for us, our schedule doesn't always line up exactly with what the teachers gave us. And I think that they understand that we are working at home moms, plus we're trying to figure out this homeschooling thing. So they do understand. And I do feel like they're giving you grace that you can't even see right now. But your kids knowing the schedule. Before we got started, it felt like we had a couple of days at home before we were thrown into the rigor of doing school here. I made a schedule and I texted it to both of my kids, and I was like, this is the way we're going to live until coronacation is over. And I took it all the way to bedtime, and I also included times of the day where phones are not allowed. And I think that that's important too. I think for us to let them know our expectations up front rather than trying to develop rules. It's kind of like playing a game and you make up the rules as you go along. And for the first few days, you may have to do that. But I think eventually, if that schedule is typed out in black and white or written out in black and white, that if they're wanting to kind of go off, if they're wanting to go rogue with that and you really can't, you can say, look, this is the schedule, and letting that hold everyone's feet to the fire. And it is good to be flexible. We have to have grace with one another, but I think having that foundation will help keep frustrations minimized as much as they possibly can. And I wanted to allude just a little bit to what Brittany was saying about having a toddler at home. I can remember the day of having, Ansley would have been maybe 12, 13. Amory would have been around 6, and then Abby would have been around 1. And I'm very, very much a fan of crib time and room time. And I know that sometimes you're like, you got to be kidding. You put your child in a crib for an hour. Amen. And I'm telling you, the salvation that brought to everybody in our house. And I put Abigail and her playpen in front of a really pretty window with a few toys, and she knew she had to entertain herself in that playpen for an hour. And then there would be another 2 hours in the afternoon where she's having nap time. That was 3 hours. And I'm going to tell you, you can get a lot done in 3 hours where there's not a lot of other distractions. And you think, but that's it sounds neglectful to that one that maybe isn't with everyone else. But no, it's not. You are teaching them how to be creative and how to entertain themselves and those are life lessons that they're going to have for the rest of their life. Christy, I want to go back to you for just a second, because you're staying at home now and you're helping your children through this time of schooling. You've got 3 students of your own in your home as your own children, but you're also a teacher to how many?
I have probably about 80 students during the day. I have 3 classes of between 20 and 30 students. So I have about 80 students throughout the day that I see.
Because I know we have a lot of friends who are in the same boat that you're in. They were teachers. They have multiple students in their classroom still that they're trying to reach out to, but then they have their own children sitting at the table too that need them. Can you talk to these friends a little bit about how to balance this time and not get so frustrated?
Well, like Brittany started out with saying, the first, I'm not perfect in any way, but I've done some of those things. We did a schedule. The older two, I have an 8th grader and a 7th grader, and me being the business teacher, I did mine in a Google Sheet, and I shared that with them. And so we all three had access to the Google Sheet, and then too, with it being on the computer like that, then I could adjust it if I needed to, because what we came up for the first day, we ended up adjusting that, that next week. But so it's been a blessing having the older two, because they're used to technology and used to doing things. My students, this has not been a huge change for them, because we use Google Classroom every day. They're used to doing online learning and doing a lot of independent work, projects and things like that. So, but I have had our 7-year-old sitting right next to me, and it's been a fun time for us, frustrating at times, but it's been fun. But I think, like you said, having that schedule, and then her and I being able to sit there and work. And, when we had the marriage weekend, what feels like forever ago, several weeks ago, Alan and I talked about expectations. And so Riley and I, we had a big conversation about expectations and what I needed her to do and what I was going to be doing, and how I was right there if she needed me, but that I needed her to be independent, and she is very independent. But that we needed to be able to work through it together. And I think just being honest with them, sharing with them that, this is new for us too, but just helping them understand that, we're working through this together, and that you're there for them. Because a lot of if the online learning is not familiar for your kids, it may be a source of stress or, anxiety for them. So just to know that you're there, and if we can't figure it out together, we have the teacher we can reach out to, or, other friends and things like that, just to work through. Like I said, some of the technology has been the challenge.
That's good. Brittany, I want you to answer this question, just because you have a student or a child at your house about this age, and Christy, you may chime in later, but I know in your teaching, Brittany, in your years, you taught with some of these younger grades. But I had a mommy, and she is wanting help and advice for testing anxiety with her kindergarten 5-year-old. And she's specifically talking about iRead, and you may be familiar with that program. But she says, her daughter excels in her lessons, but she's failing the test. And could you speak some encouragement into that mommy's heart, and maybe helping with this testing anxiety? And I know for my own child, I have one that I believe has some testing anxiety, and how we can take this time while we are at home and help them one-on-one with that. So if you could speak into that, that would be great.
Yeah, testing anxiety, it's a real thing. I've seen kids, in my many years of teaching across multiple grade levels, I have seen children who truly do. I know they know it. As their teacher, I'm like, I know they know this content. And then in a testing environment, they are very much unable to display what they know. And that is a very frustrating place to be as someone who is educating that child, because you know what they know, and imagine how frustrated they must feel. So I would first encourage to not let them sense your frustration. So it's okay to step away from that and take a break. I would encourage you to reach out to their teacher. There may be something, I know as a former educator, when I had children like that, there's lots of ways we can assess kids, what they know about a book. And it doesn't always have to be in a multiple choice format or through a certain program. Now, obviously, because of, not physically being with that child, there are some limitations, but they may be able to email you some questions that you could just sit and have like a book talk with your child. And I would encourage you, as you're on iRead, I think you should be able to see what they're reading. Read a couple with your student. read it with your child, and then have a book talk before they have to answer the questions about it. Kids can usually talk much more about what they know about a topic than they can write about it or reflect about it. Our oral comprehension always comes before our written and those other ways. So most kids are very comfortable talking about their reading. They're very comfortable talking about math. Eli and we can talk about math all day long. So I would encourage you to talk with them first and make it fun. And a lot of teachers call them book talks. So if you even use that language with your child, they're likely to know what it is. And I would encourage you to, something that helps ease testing anxiety, especially for reading. This wouldn't have anything to do with what they're reading independently, but read aloud a book together. I know me and the boys, we have started a chapter book together, and we're trying to read a little bit each day. That will do far more for your child's reading comprehension than anything else. And I know almost every teacher would probably agree with me on that. And there is no age too old to be read aloud to. So, pick a great chapter book and a classic and read it aloud with your children and talk about it. Talk about what you're thinking and verbalize that for your student. Say, sometimes have you ever been reading a book and you don't remember a character's name, but you know how they felt? Well, let's talk about that. And I think when you model what you're thinking when you read, that's really powerful for your little 5-year-old to go, oh, well, that's normal. I should be thinking about what my characters are feeling. So everybody can do that. Just think about the things that you do to help you understand what you read and say it out loud for your little one to understand, because they pick up a lot more than we give them credit for. And just encourage them and love them and hug them and reach out to the teacher. The teacher may say, you know what, let's take a break from my read for a week. And you just have book talks and send me notes about what you talk about. That may end up being a bigger win for you and your student than the other.
That's great.
Yeah, I'll say too with that, if it's okay, I read is something we're using and working through, and shout out to Miss Di Raleigh's teacher. She is amazing. But she and I, that's one of those things. She sits right there with me, and I'm working and she's working. But when it comes to, there's a spelling part, and that's the part that she has struggled with. I stop and she spells the words out loud and I type them for her, because by the time, she's got it in her brain how to spell it. But then by the time she gets, the keys typed in, because she's not proficient at typing, then she's lost it. So, and I figured out too this past week, just little things like I'll tell her to close her eyes, close your eyes and visualize that word and then spell it. And, she's like, Mom, that works, So figuring out, she is a very visual learner. So trying to maybe figure out kind of how your kids learn, like Brittany said, if it's verbal versus the written. Her writing assignments, I've been typing those for her, and so, and I emailed Miss Di and said, hey, is this okay? Can I do these things? And she was like, absolutely. The teacher wants to know what the child knows, like Brittany said, and not how well they do on the test. They want to know that they're learning and they're being productive and being healthy, a healthy learner. So I think the flexibility there is important, just to try to figure out what works for them so that you're both not, pulling your hair out.
That is great. Well, I know one of the things that we've been working on here at our house, because we do have our ages are all spread out. I still have a 20-year-old at home. We have a 15-year-old here and a 10-year-old. And so for me, one of my goals, because I don't know about you, but I've always wished for more time. I mean, I am so grateful for this time of not having to rush out of my house, just getting home from school and having to eat dinner fast or eat dinner in the car and rush here and rush there, and taking this time. And I say this with much caution, because I don't want to put any more pressure on our moms out there and our friends, but I just encourage you to take this time, if it's just once a week, to think of a life lesson to teach your kids at home. And for me, I've pulled them in, and this was part of that schedule, was that between 5 and 6 every evening, we are cooking dinner together in the kitchen. And sometimes it really works, and sometimes it's not. I found myself in the kitchen by myself still, but I've had them all helping me cook dinner at different times and helping us clean up after dinner. And we've done some home projects here. They've learned how to stain a fence and to do some things like that, but incorporating some life lessons into this coronacation that would have been time that we wouldn't have had if we didn't have it, and being sure that we're having those kinds of times together. So Brittany, would you want to share, are y'all doing any kind of life lessons at the PV house?
We are. We're doing a lot of yard work. So the boys have learned how to pull up weeds, and it's funny. Eli is like a jam up weed puller upper. Like, he knows how to get in there from the root. It's so funny. I told Chris, I said, who'd have thought? Like, Eli, this is his deal. But it was so funny when we first started doing it. It was hard for them to tell. They're like, which one's a weed and which one's the grass, or which one's something we don't pull up. But so we've had some great life lessons about that, and teaching them just walking around and teaching them about nature. They learned what a dogwood tree was, because that's my favorite, and they're in bloom right now. And we're in a new home, so it's a new old home, but it's new to us, and so we don't know everything that's going to bloom, this spring. So we've enjoyed that together. We've enjoyed the boys are learning. They're helping me probably for the first time. And I'm just going to be real with y'all. We don't eat at the table a lot when life is happening, because we're always at a ball field, because I have 3 boys. So they're learning more about how to set a table and how it looks nice and how mom likes it. And, Chris is like, hey, and if you set it the way a girl likes it, that's going to help you later in life. I mean, we've been having fun with it. So they're enjoying that. So yeah, those are some of the life lessons we've tried to incorporate. We've learned how to fold towels, little things like that are important for boys to know. I'm hoping that their future wives will thank me.
For coronacation. How about you, Christy?
Yeah, well, I'm the mom that has these great ideas, but, doesn't always follow through. But I think, like you said, sometimes it doesn't always work out, but I've had, Raleigh in the kitchen with me helping, because she loves that. Aubrey and Tate are great at cleaning and, doing things around the house inside, and laundry and helping with those things. And then, we have never been a big bike family. We've never had a good place for the kids to ride bikes. So we have been working on, the older 2 have actually mastered their bikes, and going up and down through the neighborhood, and, being, like I said, getting outside. That's like with Brittany, the gardening, just trying to get outside more. And, but like I said, I think it's important just to find what they enjoy and pull them in at those times, and figure out how they can, like you said, learn a new skill or something. I think it's just, like I said, you just got to kind of work with each one. Tate has been outside playing basketball, just, like I said, building those skills that they have and things that they enjoy, because it's stressful, like you said, sitting in front of a computer all day. So taking those opportunities just to have fun and learn some new skills is a great idea.
We have just a few more minutes together, and I just wanted to touch on something that Brittany mentioned, I think, early in the call, and that is for the mom that is sitting there with her kids during the day trying to homeschool, and then she's also got a job or something that she may even do from home. It could even be as simple as thinking through that grocery list that you have in your menu, but working on that multitasking, because for me, I have a severe rubber band ball going on in my brain, and it just is like it's just tied up in a knot and it never ends. But I can remember when I was homeschooling and I had a part-time job and I had ministry that I had to do and still be mom. Like there was a lot that I could multitask with, but I learned that someone was getting cheated in the process. My kids were getting cheated. I was getting cheated. Whatever it was that I was trying to work on was getting cheated, and I was left with an overwhelming sense of frustration all the time. And I had to learn that the best thing for me to do for the whole gamut, the family, and in actually getting something done and being efficient with it, is to stop, is to quit trying to multitask and be Superwoman or Wonder Woman, and knowing that I got to put my phone up. I've got to leave it in another room so that I'm not worrying about what text message I might be getting or what phone call I might be having coming up. I have to know that there is a time for everything. There is a time for me to sit with my children and do school. There will be a time that I need to set aside to work, and there is a time that I need to set aside to get my mommy stuff done. So for all of you moms out there who are trying to get it all done, I just encourage you to give yourself grace and to give yourself some space. And that's something that I want to do as a follow-up call at some point soon, is having some me time, because we all need that. But it was just like before I got on this call, it's like everyone's going to have to leave mom alone for a few minutes. And I feel like if I give them their time first, they understand that I need my time a little bit later. So I try to get up before they do, get some work in, and then we get school in, and then I get me some time that I can work. But trying to get it all done at the same time only leads to frustration. So give yourself a break, and don't feel like you have to multitask. And then this was a suggestion that was given to me from a teacher friend. And she said, encourage the moms to just stay in close communication with your teachers. And if you're that mom from trying to balance from work and school, communicate that to your teachers, and knowing that your schedule may not line up exactly the way the school schedule is. And I really know that they're going to be understanding with that. So her commission to you is to not get stressed out, because if our stress is at a high level, it's only going to increase our kids' level of stress. So I'm going to let you both, Christy, if you want to chime in one more time and give any last bit of tidbit of advice, and then back to Brittany, and then I'm going to close us with a note from a retired administrator from the school. So you go ahead, Christy.
Okay, so when we were talking about doing this, I kind of thought, I don't know what I'm going to share. I've been a hot mess, and this has been craziness at the Drew house, but I think, like I said earlier, being real with your kids, just, trying to, get a schedule. A friend of mine a long time ago told me, set a schedule or have a plan. But sometimes you have to back up and punt. Sometimes you've got to be flexible there. But we were sitting at dinner the other night, and because that is something else that has been a blessing. And, Alan said, you know what I'm thankful for? And I said, what are you thankful for, Dad? And Raleigh looked at him really funny, and she said, Dad, it's not Thanksgiving. And he said, no, it's not. I said, Raleigh, we can be thankful all the time, and especially in crazy times like this, when things are uncertain and it's out of the norm. We've really got to look for things that we can be thankful for and the blessings that we have. And like I said, that time at the table, that was what he was thankful for. He said, Brittany said, on a normal routine day, we've got ball games and gymnastics and, everything we're going in 5 different directions. So just being thankful for that time and taking advantage of that time with your kids. And I think these are days that we'll look back at and just never forget. So I think it's good. It's you gotta look for the blessings.
That's so good, Christy. I know, I guess, for me, I'm with Christy. We've had a roller coaster at our house. I've had my moments where I felt like a hot mess too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to figure this out, especially now that we know this is going to be for a few more weeks. But I know something the Lord's just been showing me, especially just these past couple of days when I've had a little bit of break this week from the digital learning because of spring break, but just showing me that I don't want to waste this time, and I want the Lord. God can do amazing things through us, because our biggest ministry, my most important ministry, I guess is what God is reminding me of, is in my home, is in those 4 walls. And those 3 little boys and that man, Chris Beebe, who are my people, they are the most important ministry. And I love that quote that says, the most important thing you do for the kingdom of God may not be something you do, but someone you raise. And I think all the digital learning, all the lessons we're doing, our kids aren't going to remember that, but they are going to remember how they felt during this time and how they felt with mom and felt with dad and whoever it is that's caring for them. But so I would just encourage you, guard your heart and make much of Jesus in your 4 walls.
That is great. So for my friend Lisa Maddox, she would just like to encourage parents to relax and not be anxious. The teachers know that this is all new. It's new to them, and they know that it's new to you, and that they don't expect us as moms at home trying to homeschool to be perfect. And we want you all to know that you should feel free to email any concerns and questions to your teachers. For these 2 teachers that are online now, I think that they would say amen, that they're there to help you during this time, and that just reach out. And no question is a stupid question, and that the teachers do want to hear from you. this is just as hard for them as it is for us, because I think for me, I feel like the church was just stripped away, and that's my purpose. And so for me, I'm having to kind of figure out how to continue my purpose on living from home, and I'm just doing the very best that I can. And that was taken away from them too. And so they miss your kids. So let them see your kids, get your kids to encourage them through that time. But they want to know what's working and what's not, because it's like Christy mentioned with the schedule. You can, step back and punt again. They may be ready to step back and punt again. And so just knowing that we need to be flexible as opportunity allows, and it doesn't all have to get done at once. And so we have less than a minute, and I just want to pray for everybody before we leave. Dear Lord in heaven, we thank you so much for your love and for your grace and your mercy and your kindness. And Lord, we pray that as we have this time of a coronacation in our homes, that we would find the silver linings and we would be thankful for them, and that we would seize every day that you've given us through this time with our families. And would we make the most of it? Would we make much of Jesus during this time in the four walls of the homes that we're living in, and let our light shine for you during this time? Thank you for my friends Brittany and Christy, and would you bless them abundantly, and all of our friends who are listening. In Jesus' name, amen. I love you all. You're amazing.